All right, everybody, welcome back to the Horn Takes podcast. I am your host, Sean Redfern. It is Monday, so we got to do a Trace Otra Games recap. We got to do drunk Sean thoughts from the game so we can rewatch the game tonight, check out some stats tonight, and come back tomorrow with the after action review. We'll check and see how far off drunk Sean was and all his thoughts. Drunk Sean is usually pretty close to normal Sean that pays attention to stats and actually watches what's going on in a little more with a little more in-depth detail. I feel like Drunk Sean does all right. Check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. Just like to listen to podcasts, you can find us at Apple Podcast, iHeart Podcast, Spotify Podcast. You can find us at horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com. If none of those other places work for you, again, that's horntakespodcast.buzzsprout.com. Trace Otra Games recap. We came in to this week 3-0. We didn't play week 1. We played week 2. We're on to week 3. I feel like we picked some pretty decent games. They were either ranked opponents or they were games that just kind of meant something on a national level. We thought the teams were evenly matched. That's usually what we're shooting for with Trace Otra games. Game number 1, we had number 20 Arizona at number 14 K-State. K-State was a 7.5-point favorite in this game at home on Friday night in Manhattan. Arizona likes to throw the ball around. K-State likes to run the ball. Arizona looked pretty good so far this season, but man, I just thought going into Manhattan and playing K-State is always tough. Doing it at night, really tough. I knew it was going to be tough for Arizona. I just didn't think it was going to be that tough. We thought they'd keep it close. We predicted K-State 34, Arizona 27. K-State wins it in a blowout, 31-7. But nonetheless, we're 1-0 on week 3 of Trace Otra games because we don't do point spread, folks. Maybe I need to graduate to that. If I hit close to 100% of these Trace Otra games this year, I vow that in 2025 we will do point spread, and I think we'll suffer at that point. Or I'll be awesome, and I wish I would have bet all these things. Number 25, Boston College at number 6, Mizzou. Missouri, 17-point favorite at home. Hadn't been scored on. Scoring like 45 points a game coming into this game. I thought it would be close for a little bit. I thought Boston College would be able to keep it close just on kind of hype and hate alone, right? Like a lot of times teams will just come in and keep games close that they really shouldn't. I thought Boston College would be able to do that for a little bit. And then I figured Missouri would just get their shit together and pull away late, sort of, or not late in the second half, but sort of in the second half of the game. And what really happened was the opposite, man. Boston College jumped out to some big leads. And then, I mean, Mizzou did come back, but they came back just to barely win it. We had Mizzou winning this one 38-20. They won it 27-21. They scored 21 straight points against Boston College. You know that's got to sting if you're Boston College. That could have been. I think I heard him say on the broadcast that this would have been the first time Boston College beat 2 top 10 teams in the same season in like a gazillion years or something like that. So pretty tough one if you're Boston College. 2-0 though. We're 2-0. We picked Mizzou. They got it. Our third Trace Otra game was Aggie at Florida. Aggie was a 4-point favorite. We picked this game before we knew that Connor Weigman was even questionable, much less before we found out he wasn't going to play. I don't know that it really mattered. I don't know that other guy isn't better than Connor Weigman or however you say his name. I I don't know. I mean, that dude made plays that I don't know that Connor Weigman could have made. But we thought this game would be sloppy, just bad football all around, and I think it kind of was. Aggie did jump out like really big time to start off this game, and Florida scored some late to kind of make it close-ish. But we thought it'd be sloppy. We thought Aggie'd win it though. It was a must-win. We talked about that on the show on what was it, Thursday. Both of these teams had to win this game. If you're Billy Napier, things are only getting worse. Billy Napier will not be the head coach at Florida after this season. There is no freaking way. You know what's crazy? I don't understand why they fired Dan Mullen. Wasn't Dan Mullen like, didn't he win like 30 games in 3 years for them and they fired him? You talk about like just some all time bad decisions. I mean, that ranks up there with like Texas Tech, Shitkin, and Mike Leach. Dumb. The best coach you've ever had, Texas Tech, and you will no longer find another one. You will not find another guy that can do what Mike Leach did in Lubbock. Oh, Kirby Hocutt. He got a little too big for his britches and ran off the best thing Texas Tech had going ever in the history of Texas Tech. Anyway, we had Aggie 26-20. We weren't far off. They won it 33-20. So we were off by 7 points. It's not bad. And we're usually pretty close on at least one of the scores. Sometimes we get them really, really close. We mentioned heartbreak for Boston College. What about heartbreak for South Carolina in that LSU game? We did not have this game, and I wish I would have picked it now. What a hell of a game that was. But can you imagine two pick sixes getting called back? I Man, we shit on officials on this show constantly. It's what I do. Like officiating is so bad in college. It's really bad in all sports. But I feel like in college football, officiating is just absolute trash. And holy fuck, did they blow that game? I mean, did they ruin that game? First of all, the first pick six, I don't think that was a horse collar. I understand that they changed the rule. Used to be last year, you could horse collar the quarterback if he was in the pocket. Well, this year they changed it. And I think they jumped the gun big time on chunking that flag. And I don't know if they reviewed it. I don't think they did. If they reviewed it and they still called that a horse collar, then they should all never referee games again because to me it looked pretty clear that he had the inside of the jersey. He got the collar of the jersey, not the collar of the shoulder pads. Pulled the guy down by his jersey. So that brought back a pick six. And at that point, that game is, man, what is the score of that game at that point? I think the game would have been 17-0 or 17 to, I don't remember, but it could have got really nasty for LSU if that play doesn't get overturned. And then at the end of the game, to pretty much ice it, I think, they get bailed out again on a bullshit block, man. I don't You can't block the quarterback. Like you can't push the quarterback down. The quarterback gets up to go try to make a tackle. You're not allowed to push him down. Is that what we're telling people? Is that the new rule? What just an I mean, I don't know. Like, if I'm a South Carolina fan, I am absolutely livid. I'm also really excited we were in that game. I mean, that was a hell of a game. They just kind of let it slip away. I know the injury to that quarterback obviously didn't help them. He wasn't, LSU didn't pay any attention to him from a running game perspective the rest of that game, really. Man, you love to see the good games, man. You just hate to see the good games get ruined. Two pick sixes. I mean, like, what are the odds on there being a penalty on two pick sixes? What are the odds there being two pick sixes? There's almost none. And then, oh yeah, sorry guys, there's a penalty. Man, I I don't know. Maybe I'm not seeing them on Twitter, but I am really surprised at how there is just not more outrage on the South Carolina side on those two penalties because I thought they were just terrible. If that happened to Texas, I would be insufferable. It might protest on the steps of something where officials are at. I might just go to like high school games and just start protesting officials just in general. So there's Trace Ocher games. We're 3-0 again in week 3. So we're 6-0 on the season. We'll be back on Thursday with another set of Trace Ocher games. For those of y'all that don't know, Trace Ocher just means 3 other. It's 3 other games that I'm interested in that week. That's it. I am I'm gringo, but I know a little Espanol. You know what I'm saying? All right, drunk Sean thoughts on the game. First of all, like big win for Texas, 56-7. Regardless of what happens, if you can win 56-7, you got to feel at least pretty good. I mean, sure, there's always going to be stuff to work on. There's always going to be things you got to fix, but 56-7, pretty substantial ass kicking. Anyway you slice it. So we're just going to ramble off these thoughts, man. 2 is obviously better than 1. Quinn Ewers goes down pretty early in the game. Early in the second quarter, I believe, Quinn Ewers goes down with just a weird injury. It's interesting. Steve Sarkisian said that the injury happened on the throw to Gunnar Helm, the one where he made the hurdle play and all that shit. Really good play, by the way. Outstanding, athletic play. But I thought I saw on the play before when Quinn Ewers handed it off, it looked like a defensive end was coming around and kind of grabbed his arm on the way by and just kind of yanked him awkwardly. I I mean, I'm not going to say Steve Sarkisian's lying. Maybe he just doesn't know. I don't know. Maybe Quinn told him. Maybe it was on the throw. I don't know. But it was really weird that play happened, and then the very next play, he just can't go on anymore. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting. It doesn't really matter. He's hurt, strained abdomen, which those can be long term naggy deals. I've seen anywhere from a couple of weeks to months on those types of deals. It sounds like at least yesterday that his is not that bad and that he's week to week, right? So I don't really know what that means. We certainly hope the best for Quinn. It's been a man. The only thing at this point, the only thing you can really look at Quinn and say anything negatively about Quinn Ewers is he does get hurt. This is the 3rd season in a row that he's going to miss time due to injury. All different kinds of injuries. But all Arch Manning does is come in, throw for 4 touchdowns, run for another one. I thought Arch looked really good. For a guy that hasn't played a whole lot of college football, Arch Manning had some command of the offense, had some command of the field. We talked a lot when Arch Manning signed with Texas about just these intangible things that come along with Arch Manning. You just think his grandfather has played in a lot of really big games. His uncles have played in really big games. He was blessed to get his father's athleticism, and his father says it's his mother's athleticism. I got to take his word for it, but I've heard multiple times that the brother that just couldn't ever play anymore because of injuries was clearly the most athletic brother, Cooper. So he's just got a wealth of knowledge and experience to fall back on, and I think, man, I think it's really helped him sort of adjust to being in college. It certainly helped him from a maturity perspective, not being one of those guys that thinks, oh, I'm not the starter. I got to go somewhere else. Arch Manning looked good, y'all. He looked good. There is an insane amount of talent on this roster. I mean, where to start? We just talked about the quarterbacks. No doubt. I mean, Texas has a backup quarterback that would start on. I bet you he would start today on somewhere between 95-98% of Division I football teams. And my numbers may be a little off, my percentages may be but the point is, there's not a lot of places that Arch Manning couldn't be at right now and be the starter. That's how good that dude is. And he's just chilling, waiting on his time. Wide receivers, Isaiah Bond, we saw him with a big touchdown catch. We saw Ryan Wingo get loose. We saw Ryan Wingo get loose at Michigan. You got Matthew Golden, who's already contributed big time, scored touchdowns. You got Silas Bolden. You got Jonte Cook, who's now scored touchdowns. You got DeAndre Moore, who's now scored touchdowns. There is just a sick amount of pass catching talent on the field for Texas this year, and I'm here for it. Last year I wondered like why are some of these other dudes not playing, and I think it just all boiled down to trust, right? And I think Sark's he's got 6 dudes that he trusts right now. And holy crap! If I'm a quarterback and Steve Sarkisian can keep recruiting wide receivers the way he has already at Texas, I got to consider Texas like very, very seriously. I'm not saying I go there, but holy cow, they are loaded. Defensive backs. You got Andrew Makuba, the transfer from Clemson, who has come on really, really strong the last 2 games. You got Manny Muhammad at cornerback, who you hardly ever hear his name called because they just don't throw it over there. And when they do throw it over there, they don't get shit. You got Jahdae Barron, who's moved out to cornerback, still plays the star some. You got what's that kid's name? The one that kept Jahdae Barron on the bench when they were freshmen. His name escapes me. Should have wrote it down. But y'all know who I'm talking about. Jalen Gilbo. That's who I'm talking about. My producers just said it in my ear. That's what I'm gonna pretend that my producers are looking out for me. Jalen Gilbo. You got Derek Williams Jr. out there, sophomore, making plays. I mean, the the level of talent in 1 year for Texas in the defensive backfield has just been unbelievable. They were like a weak link last year, and right now they're really good. The offensive line, we've talked about them millions of times. You got your 4 guys that have been playing together for 2 years now. Some of them have been playing for 3 years. You add Cam Williams, who's a really talented guy to that mix, and old Cam Williams is just trying to get used to it. You can tell. But then there's 5 guys behind them that they trot out there at the end of these games, and the defense isn't getting sacks. The defense isn't getting penetration in the run game. I mean, they got 10 dudes. They got 10, and I think they got more, honestly. They just have a really lack of experience past those 10 guys. And I'm not talking about experience like out there on Saturday. I'm talking about just experience in a college big time football program. They got some pups, Texas does on that O line that are going to be big names. They're going to be guys that get drafted. Defensive line, and we talked about the defensive line being kind of a worry coming into this season. And I think Vernon Broughton and Alfred Collins are holding it down hard in the middle. And then the edge guys, that's been the biggest surprise. Barron Sorrell looks better this year. Ethan Burke looks healthy, and he's making plays this year. You got Colin Simmons, freshman, who's starting to figure out what college football is all about. He's just been running around. Now he's starting to figure it out. Got Trey Moore on the other side, who I think he's starting to figure it out. I mean, he was at UTSA last year playing a bunch of guys that aren't that good. Yeah, he had a hell of a season. But it's a little bit different. He's playing a little bit different type of football right now. And he's not playing bad. He's just not having the big numbers. But he's going to get his. You got youngsters like Colton Vosick. Linebackers, man. Anthony Hill Jr. playing awesome. David Benda playing awesome. Anthony Smith, who's a little smallish, but my God, he flies around the football field like it's going out of style. You know what I really like? Leona Lafau. That dude at middle linebacker, he looks when you put Anthony Hill in the middle, it doesn't look as natural to me. Leona Lafau in the middle looks natural. Like that dude was born to play middle linebacker. Running back. Jaden Blue doesn't even play in this game. We've already lost 2 guys to injury. What does Texas do? Trey Wisner, you just go out there and run. Jarrett Gibson, you just go out there and run. Transfer kid that showed up like a week ago, go out there and run. And that's pretty much a tribute to the offensive line. I don't think I've ever seen a Texas team with this much talent. I mean, what Steve Sarkisian has been able to assemble from a talent perspective is in 3 years pretty freaking incredible. All that goodness to be said, they were sloppy at times, man. Cam Williams, we talked about him earlier. He's got to clean up the false starts. He's had at least, I mean, I'm probably wrong on this, but he's had at least 5 or 6 false starts this season. Got to clean that up. I mean, you can't put yourself behind. So they got to work with Big Cam. Cam's got to settle down a little bit. Aside of that, he's doing a really good job. A great job. I mean, he's gonna go to the NFL. I thought Quinn's interception was really bad, man. I just didn't like the play. It kind of took me back to maybe not so much last year, but the year before when he would just kind of panic and his feet would get all happy. And instead of just eating it or, trying to go do something else, he just made a bad throw. And it sailed on him. Always stuff to work on, right? I thought the run defense, we've said this a couple times this year. I thought the run defense was a little leaky, especially once you took the first guys out. When the combination of Barron Sorrell, DJ Burke, Ethan Burke, my bad. Barron Sorrell, Ethan Burke / Trey Moore are out there with Vernon Broughton and out there with Big 95. I can't think of his name. That's a solid run group. I mean, my wife kept telling me, Drunk Sean was drunk on Saturday night, and Drunk Sean took some notes. But my wife kept trying to say, man, they ran all over us. They ran all over us. I don't think they ran all over. I mean, I know they had that one big run. But I think outside of that, they didn't get a lot of yards on the ground. I mean, I think it was tough sledding. Alfred Collins, that's big number 95. See, when you get old like me, you forget shit and it just pops in your head at weird random times. It's a curse. It's my producers in my ear again. So I'd like to see them. I would like to see the second group of defensive linemen just be a little more stout in there. I think, and they're not bad, but they do give up plays. And big plays like that could be the difference in a game. And you look at that Kentucky or that Georgia game, tight ass game, one big long busted run could cost you that game. Either way, I think they'll continue to get better. But it's a past the starting 4 and some specific substitutes outside of that starting 4. The run defense needs to improve a little bit. I think the pass rush, especially off the edge, just continues to get better and better. We saw Colin Simmons making a lot of plays. We saw Ethan Burke getting back there. We saw Trey Moore getting back there. We saw Colton Vossick get his first career sack. And there was a lot of pressure, ton of pressure. If we had that type of pressure last season off the edge, national champions without a doubt, because the interior push was so good for this Texas defense last year, and they just could not get anything off the edge. So you'd hope to see Vernon Broughton and Alfred Collins figure out a way to start getting some more pressure up the middle, because once those edges are flying around the corner and they're back there and that guy's got to step up. Ideally, you want him to not have anywhere to step up. He's just got to eat it. You just collapse on him. But we're just not seeing that same push up the middle like we saw last year. Not even close. But the edge has got to be a bright spot. You got to be happy to see, our edge rushers come off the ball not just get engaged and stand there because now they're fast and they're playing good technique with their hands and they got moves now. They're getting around people. I think the secondary might be the most improved unit on the team at this point. We talked about him earlier. Manny Muhammad, Andrew Makuba, Taff. Man, that dude. I watch Taff a lot during the games because, well, I'm not intending to watch him. You just see him a lot because he just flies around and like sticks his nose into shit. If you hear a loud pop on a run play, it's probably Taft coming up to make a tackle. That dude is like a damn missile. When he diagnoses run, and he has absolutely zero concern or he does not give a shit. He's going in there and he's just going to crack heads. I mean, he's hitting somebody. And he doesn't care if he gets hurt, obviously. But man, they're just really good in the past. I mean, they're always there. We've yet to see guys just be grossly wide open. And that was something we saw last year pretty consistently. And we just haven't seen it. And they're covering guys and they're running with them and they're there when the ball gets there and they're making tackles. And I think, you know, you watch an NFL game and the reason those guys in the secondary in the NFL almost as much as the fact that they can cover people and they have good ball skills is when they get a chance to make a tackle, they make a tackle. That is so important in the secondary because it doesn't take much for you break one tackle in the secondary, you're already behind 7 guys, 6, 7 guys. You break a tackle in the secondary and you could be gone. Big play. So making those tackles, those open field tackles, big time. And so far this season, they have been really, really good at it. The whole team has. There's just not been a lot of tackles. I mean, honestly, the most missed tackles have come from sacks, it looks like to me. I mean, we have missed a lot of sacks. So that secondary unit, man, lights out. So far, let's keep it going. Remember when Gunnar Helm was the unathletic tight end that only blocked? Wow. Gunnar Helm has had himself a couple of 2 weeks right now, these last 2 weeks, man. Just a huge game against Michigan. Makes a big catch and long run and just hurdle, man. Just makes an athletic looking play on a defensive back. Big Gunnar Helm, man. That's exciting to see. It's good for him, man. He's been here. He's been here at least 3 years, maybe 4 years. And he's just always kind of been a blocker. He's always been second fiddle to JT Sanders. Man, he is showing out so far this year. Good for him. I'm going to go ahead and concede about this running game. Me and Sark just do not see eye to eye on this running game thing, y'all. That's fine. He gets paid a lot of money to do what he does. I get paid almost zero to do what I do on this show. So I'm cool with it. And that's why I say I'm conceding. I'm not fighting Steve Sarkisian anymore. But I really thought this would be the type of game where you come out and you just kind of lean on some people. You let those big offensive linemen eat. I thought this was going to be like a 250 type rushing day for Texas. It's just not. It's just not going to. We just ain't going to do it. The only way we're going to do it is if we pop some big ones. I mean, he runs the ball. Don't get me wrong. But he's never going to be Michigan, where it's like we're just going to run the ball. All that being said, man, Texas does, and he does a great job of getting the backs involved in a lot of ways. Like I don't necessarily think it's carries for the backs that's the most important thing. It's just figuring out ways to get them the ball and let them be a part of the offense. And I think he does that. He might do that better than anybody in the country. I really like Bolden in the return game. That kid's going to bust one. No fear. He reminds me of the little white dudes that used to play at Tech that just absolutely like Danny Amendola and Wes Welker. Those dudes were not ever going to call fair catch. It didn't matter. I mean, it could be 11 guys piling down on them and they're catching the ball. and they're going to try to get. I mean, if they get 6 inches, that's a win for them. He's like that a lot. I mean, he does fair catch at some, but he's not afraid to take the ball, obviously he has just really big playmaking ability. I think we'll see him bust one this year. I think Colin Simmons could easily have 5 sacks already. Right? The light's coming on for Colin Simmons, folks. I mean, I think even 5 stars, really, really highly rated 5 stars, they go into Division I football probably, and they're probably a little. I don't know if intimidated is the word, but maybe just a little self unsure. Like they're not exactly sure how they're going to do. It's a different game. I mean, I think that's natural. I think that's a good thing. I think it's good for people to go, man, I'm going to a different thing. This is different than what I've been doing for the last 3-4 years. I think Colin Simmons is about to lose all that. I think he does not care anymore. Wow, what a game from a pressure standpoint he had. And you look at him in the run game, he's not super good at the point of attack. I think that's a big area where he'll have to improve. But he's so fast, man. He can run down plays from behind. Colin Simmons, what's he got? 2 sacks now, 3 sacks now. Colin Simmons is probably going to be a freshman All-American. I think it'll be him and that kid out of South Carolina. Stewart, is that his name? But yeah, as many sacks as he has, he's missed several as well. So finally, there is no quarterback controversy at the University of Texas. I do not understand. You saw the media. Oh, Texas is number one. There's a picture of Arch Manning. Oh, coach, what are you going to do? You know, there's just all, I mean, come on, man. Stop trying to make shit happen that didn't happen. Quinn got hurt. It's happened 2 years in a row. Quinn came back and Quinn took over the team, and that's exactly what will happen this year. If and I'm saying this like this is just a mild deal he's got going on, doesn't require surgery or no more re-aggravate, whatever. Quinn Ewers will come back, and Quinn Ewers will be the starting quarterback at Texas, and Arch Manning will get to play when we blow people out, and that'll be it. And he'll be ready to come in and be the starter next year. I mean, you even got Texas fans. Arch should be the starter. Even if Quinn comes back, Arch should be the starter. Come on, man. No, no. And I love Arch Manning. I think, and I'll say this. I think that Arch Manning right now is almost as good as Quinn Ewers. And I think the only place that Quinn Ewers is better is just experience, on the field awareness. You can still see, as good as he is, you can still see Arch make some baby mistakes, right? Make some freshman type mistakes that you won't see Quinn make anymore. Those are mistakes Quinn used to make. Physically, I think Arch Manning is better than Quinn Ewers. I think Arch Manning will be better than Quinn Ewers at the University of Texas. But right now, this is Quinn Ewers' team. And I know the fans love to see some Arch Manning. I love to see some Arch Manning. That was fun as shit watching that kid go out there and his first pass be a touchdown. Then he busts off a 67-yard touchdown run, running like 21 miles an hour. It was awesome. But it's Quinn's team. Will be Quinn's team. It ain't never going to not be Quinn's team as long as Quinn is at the University of Texas. So we just hope Quinn comes back here in a week or two. Let him rest. I don't think Mississippi State is a huge threat to Texas. And they just lost to Toledo. I especially don't think they're a big threat at home. So if you got to rest him a couple weeks, rest him a couple weeks. Get him ready for the Red River Shootout. The last time Quinn Ewers showed up at the Red River Shootout after being out, all he did was win 49-0, and he threw the damn ball all over the place. I'm cool for that. I'm cool for a repeat of that. So there's Drunk Sean thoughts. We will be back tomorrow with the after action review and a science-based look at the UTSA game. We'll talk about the players that popped. We already talked about some of them, but we'll really watch the game and write down some that just really popped. Check us out on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Horn Takes. Give us a subscribe, give us a follow. We appreciate the support. Won't cost you guys anything. Email me at horntakespodcast@gmail.com with all your questions, comments, concerns, and criticisms. It's really good to be 3-0. Let's get ready to make it 4-0 this weekend. You guys get hooked.